Ethan Parker stood at the corner of Maple Street and Pine Avenue, staring at the tall brick building that everyone called Redwood High. The school looked like a giant to him. Not a scary one, and just overwhelming. He checked the time on his phone even though he already knew it was 8:02 a.m. The bell would ring in 3 minutes. 3 minutes to decide whether he would walk in or turn around. He imagined himself walking back home, telling his mother that he felt sick, that he couldn't go today, that he needed one more day. But he didn't, because his mother had already worked a double shift, because he had already promised her he would try. So he took a breath and walked forward. Inside, the hallway buzzed with energy. Lockers slammed. Shoes squeaked. Friends shouted greetings. Ethan moved like a shadow. He found his locker. He opened it. He placed his books inside. He closed it. No one noticed. And that was okay. Or at least that was what he told himself. By the time lunchtime arrived, Ethan's stomach already hurt. Not because he was hungry, but because he knew what was waiting for him. Nothing. He walked into the cafeteria anyway. The smell of pizza made his chest tighten. He walked past the food line, past the trays, past the cash register, and sat at the far table near the wall. He opened his lunchbox. Empty. He closed it halfway so no one would see. Mia Rivera loved lunchtime. It was loud. It was alive. It felt like a break from everything serious. She was laughing with her friends when something strange happened. She noticed someone who wasn't laughing. She noticed a boy sitting alone. She noticed his empty lunchbox. She noticed how he tried to hide it. And suddenly her laughter didn't feel right. She stood. Her friends asked where she was going. She didn't answer. She just walked across the room, toward the quiet boy. She placed the food on his table. A sandwich, an apple, a juice box. She smiled. She nodded. She left. No words, no attention, just kindness. Ethan stared, then smiled. And for the first time, the cafeteria felt warm. That afternoon, Ethan didn't feel invisible. He felt seen, and that changed everything. After that day, nothing looked different on the surface. The hallways were still loud. The lockers still slammed. The cafeteria was still chaotic. But something had shifted. Ethan no longer walked completely alone. Sometimes Mia walked beside him. Not always. Not dramatically. Just naturally. They didn't become best friends overnight. They became something slower and gentler. They became familiar. They spoke in small ways. A nod in the hallway. A shared glance when Mr. Collins told a joke no one else laughed at. A seat saved in the cafeteria. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. Jake noticed. Jake always noticed when something changed. One day he leaned across the lunch table and said, "Hey, you new kid. Why do you always sit over there?" Ethan froze. Mia looked up. Before Ethan could answer, Mia said calmly, "Because he likes it there." Jake shrugged. Weird. And that was that. But to Ethan, it was everything. Someone had answered for him. Someone had protected his quiet. One afternoon, rain poured over the town like a curtain. Ethan waited under the school awning. Mia stood beside him. "You walking?" she asked. "Yeah." She held up her umbrella. "You can share." They walked in silence. The rain filled the space where words weren't needed. Mr. Collins knew. Teachers always know more than students think. One day he stopped Ethan after class. "You're doing well," he said gently. Ethan nodded. Mr. Collins hesitated. "If you ever need anything," he added, "you can come to me." Ethan didn't answer, but he heard it. One morning, Ethan opened his locker and found a note taped inside. It said, "You're not invisible." There was no name. He knew who it was from. The cafeteria ran out of food early one Friday. The line stretched too long. The kitchen closed. Ethan stood frozen. He had no lunch. Again. Mia wasn't there yet. His chest tightened. Then a tray slid onto the table. "Jake, take it," Jake said awkwardly. "I'm not that hungry." Ethan stared. Jake shrugged again. "I saw what she did. Seemed right." Kindness had spread. Quietly, they never talked about what happened that first day. They never said thank you out loud. They never explained. They didn't need to. Some things don't grow in words. They grow in actions. Time passed. The leaves fell. Seasons changed. Snow came, then spring, then graduation. Ethan stood in line wearing a cap that felt too big for his head. Mia stood beside him. They smiled, not because it was over, but because it had happened. On the last day, Ethan found another note in his locker. This one was longer. It said, "You mattered the day you walked into that cafeteria. You mattered before I noticed you. But I'm glad I did. Thank you for letting me be kind." Ethan folded the note carefully and kept it. They walked out of the school together. Not as a dramatic pair, not as a storybook ending, just as two people who shared something real, something small, something powerful. Kindness doesn't end. It travels.